to our latest episode of Better Humans at Work. I am thrilled to be joined today with David Polmer. Thanks for being on the show today, David.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
So, David is an executive and career coach and communication strategist who helps leaders unlock emotional intelligence and lead with authenticity. With over 2 decades of experience, he's partnered with Fortune 500 executives, founders, and rising leaders to help them uncover their leadership potential and communicate with clarity, presence, and heart. His coaching and workshops focus on helping leaders move beyond surface level skills to develop the self awareness, communication nuance, and executive presence required to inspire trust and drive impact. David supports leaders as they embrace vulnerability as a strength, build meaningful connections, and make decisions aligned with their values and purpose. So, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited for you to share your perspective and your experience with our audience. So, how did you become a coach and trainer? What did that journey look like for you, David?
Yeah. So my story is sort of I tell it in 3 phases. My career arc. My background is in communications, and that form of communications has taken a few different shapes. When I entered the workforce shortly after college, and really at the end of college, I was dabbling in editorial writing. I was writing for publications, newspapers, and magazines, and trying to figure out, was I going to be a writer? Was I going to work for a paper? What was I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of like the precursor to phase one of my career. I wound up in public relations
Mm-hmm.
in phase one, and spent 8 years with a couple different firms in the PR field. And in that time, I was working very closely hands-on with senior leaders. I was shaping their external narratives and trying to get placement for them, and really learning the art and arc of storytelling
Mm-hmm.
through the lens of business, and I found that incredibly valuable. The
Mm-hmm.
second phase of my career was on the corporate side. I had moved into internal and executive communications for the telecommunications company US Cellular, and it was there that I really began to understand the nuance of moving from communications to communication strategy, and learning how to be a consultant. And I was on the inside, and I was serving the CEO and the executive team and the director and above community, and helping connect the organizational why to the everyday experiences of the people within the business. And my role was not only to create communications that serve that need, but make that connection and be a partner for leaders in helping them make that connection so they could drive that connectivity within their teams. That was another 7, 8 years of my journey. Excuse me. And then it was time to leave and branch out and move on. And third phase, I decided I would take those learnings and go off to be an actual consultant and be a strategist and a consultant. And I had the good fortune of partnering with, over time, over another 8 year period, a few different agencies, two of which I'm still involved with today. And I still serve in a consulting fashion. What changed for me about 3 years ago was, I'm in my late 40s now, and it was that point in time in my life where I thought it was appropriate to look and assess, where am I at today? How do I find the areas where I'm most energized? How do I clearly connect most obviously with my clients in a consistent fashion? How do I recognize where they see that I bring them the greatest value? And how do I find a framework for a life, not just a 9 to 5 or whatever the business day is, but how do I find a framework for my life so that I can tap into those special areas of me during the workday in a way that I can be that version of myself all the time? And as I looked at the patterns of my life, my relationships, my friendships, my client relationships, And I, again, studied where I was making inroads with clients and the people in my life. I saw that in many respects, I was acting in partnership, much like a coach would. And while I didn't yet have the mindset or the structure or the credentials to be a coach, I started to think about how I might provide an offering that moved me from leading with helping leaders solve strategic business needs and shift into how to help them as individual leaders first.
Yeah.
And that's where I recognized it was time to get this credential, really think about creating an offering as a coach, and be able to serve leaders and their ability to grow their capabilities of connecting with their teams, driving organizational growth, and helping people in the midst of career change really figure out who they are, how to showcase who they are, and how to show up in the marketplace in a really impactful way.
Well, people call a lot of what you just said soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that because it insinuates that they're not as powerful or as effective as hard skills.
Mm-hmm.
I like using the term power skills, especially because after you reach a certain level of leadership, your power skills matter more than your technical skills. And so you need to know how to do everything you just said, how to be a good team leader and an influencer, and have that self-awareness and have that alignment. And so I think it's really important what you do. I'm very interested because every time I bring a guest on, I always ask, what do you want your topic to be? What do you want to speak on when you come on the show? And you said mindful networking. And I had one idea of what you meant by that, but I don't know if I was correct in that idea. And so can you please define what you mean by mindful networking and how it relates to the work that you do?
Yeah, I would love to. So as I mentioned, as a coach, I work with plenty of people who are in the midst of career change or thinking about career change. And when they are exploring how to go about the process, and they start to share what that looks like, I often hear them talk about networking from really a place of sort of like depleted energy. Feels heavy and hard. The idea of selling yourself, whether or not you're coming directly in need because you need a job or because you're exploring, the language and the energy that comes with it often feels just really tough.
Yeah.
And when I think about what is at the heart of networking, it's about connectivity with other people. So if you substitute out the business term networking and focus on the meaning behind it, what we're really trying to do is find space to give space to other people to tell their story, showcase who they are, and make connections with you and the people within the broader circle that you know. The mindfulness piece is about not only detaching yourself from the pressures of networking as you're doing it, but being able to stay present as you're doing it. So how do you give yourself the space to let go and be mindful and present in creating the opportunity for connections with other people? How do you clear your mind? How do you listen intently? How do you allow for conversations to go where they need to go without feeling like you need to control it or over orchestrate it, but while still having clarity about what you're trying to get out of the situation? So when I think about mindfulness and mindful networking, I think about creating connectivity with purpose while staying present.
It's so interesting because, as a business owner, I started in like a entrepreneur like incubator, and every week we would pitch and get like critiqued on our pitch. And then you learn in like business school, like we got to have your elevator pitch ready, so someone asks what you do or what value you bring, you can like answer that quickly.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is kind of the antithesis of that. I know there's still like a deeper meaning and purpose, even if it is just sheer connection, but like, how do we not worry about what we're projecting, but instead be mindful of what the person on the other side of that conversation is contributing and asking good questions and just being there for that rather than having an agenda and a pitch and like, certain lines that you want to say and a certain, agenda you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what comes to mind for me when you paint that scenario is you're in front of potential investors and you got 3 minutes to sell your story and sell your business idea. That's a different version, I think, of what we're talking about.
For sure.
Yes, we are all selling and we're all pitching in one form or another. But the way I think the most effective salespeople sell isn't directly by pitching their goods and services. It's by listening. It's by understanding how to meet the needs of the client. It doesn't mean that they don't know their own story. It doesn't mean that they don't know the value of the product or service they're ultimately selling. It means they're listening for the right moment in the right ways to tell the right story, to make the right connection, so that the audience on the receiving end says, that is for me. And the savvy seller knows how to find those moments and create those spaces so that awareness and discovery is possible. You know what I mean?
For sure, for sure. So we have a lot of HR and workplace inclusion leaders who tune into these talks. How would you recommend someone in like an HR or DEI role use mindful networking like internally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all know in organizations, part of the job is political savvy and understanding how to navigate the dynamics of the workplace. I hear sometimes people, when they're working with me, will start unpacking all of the things that they are responsible for and what they need to do. And through the partnership, we talk often about what the role really is. You'd sort of alluded to the soft skills, which I think
power skills,
right? Because I don't know that there's anything soft about them. They are truly power skills. At the end of the day, your role is so much greater than that to-do list of knocking out things on your own. It's about knowing how to navigate that space, to bring others along, to move organizations forward. It's the nuance. It's really understanding the power moves that you need to play to shape and change directions and make real impact. So when I think about people in leadership, specifically in spaces like HR, it's about empowering leaders within the organization to really understand and evolve the way they think about their roles within the business and what they're responsible for. To whom? How do they manage up? How do they manage down? How do they manage across? How do they gain that political insight and savvy to know how to be doing all of those things while executing the day-to-days and empowering their teams at the same time to execute on their behalves? So I think, for HR, for senior leaders and organizations looking to ensure that the next level of leadership is ready, it's investing in the people and those power skills to ensure they're ready to deliver well beyond that checklist.
I love that. I feel like there's a Venn diagram here of mindful networking and inclusive behaviors, or allyship, if we want to get more specific, right?
Yeah.
And in my forthcoming book, Act Like an Ally, Work with an Ally, I talk about the importance of really listening and being an active listener, not listening to respond, but listening to understand,
Mm-hmm.
because an ally is only as good as serving the individual in a way that they need to be served. And you only get that through this connection that you keep talking about, right? And so, and same with inclusive leadership. Inclusive leaders really have to get to know each of their direct reports, because what makes one person feel valued and respected could look very different than someone else. And so I do feel like there's this nice Venn diagram going on
For
between
sure.
mindful networking and inclusive behaviors in the workplace. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about it.
Yeah. Well, and just to add to that, first of all, I can picture the Venn diagram. It's very clear as you're sharing it. I was thinking about maybe not in as clear and crisp a visual as you just pointed out, but thinking about that heading into our conversation today. And, that inclusiveness and that idea of allyship, when leaders are doing it and contributing the right way and creating that space, it's more than just again, I'll go back to the check the box metaphor. It's more than just this idea that, hey, I got to remember in this meeting to show up as inclusive. It's a shift into a mindset of what it means to be someone who just embodies these values. And I find sometimes, both in the folks I work with and my past experiences over a couple decades in work, that we as humans sometimes lose the connection between leadership and in a formal business sense, and what it means to actually embody the ideals of an actual leader.
Yeah.
Which is to let go of the notion that you need to project anything. You need to be in charge. That happens by way of being a servant to those you are bringing along with you, whether that's directly your team or the organization at large. And when you can let go of the sense of how others, whether perceived or real, might be judging you, and you can let go of whether or not you're living up to that title of leader, and you can let go of all the fears that come with being found out, if you will, and you can lean into being the truest form of self and recognizing that allyship is in service of the kind of leader and the kind of person you want to be, well, then it's not an act.
Yeah.
It's just who you are every day.
It's who you are.
And that's how people wind up following you and connecting with you.
Who you are defined by what you do, right? Like I always say, never call yourself an ally. That title is what someone gives to you when you're doing it right. We act like an ally every day. Okay, so we're already like close to time, and I love ending the episode hearing 3 pointers for listeners out there who want to practice more mindful networking in their own lives.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll give us 3 here to wind up the time. One is know your why, especially as we think about this in the context of mindful networking. Know why you're reaching out to the person or people you're reaching out to. Beyond needing a job, needing them to give you more connections, put the need aside and figure out, why are you interested in talking to this person? Is there something about their career that interests you? Is there something about their current role? Is there something about their business? Figure out the genuine why. The second is know your narrative, not just your pitch, not, this sort of elevator version of narrative. Have a sort of a stake in the ground about, here's where I've been and who I've been. Here's where I am right now. And here's where I'm headed. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to verbal vomit all of that all at once heading into the call or in the meeting. It just means that you have to know it clear enough to have it in the back of your mind so that you're ready to share parts and or all of it when the moment arises. The third is what we talked about, presence. Practice the art of letting go. Have enough clarity and structure around your networking that you know what you're trying to get out of it, and then put that all aside and let the conversation go where it needs to go. Because ultimately, if it's going well, if it's going the right way, this is the first of many conversations.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of a relationship. And if you can free yourself from the notion that one meeting has to deliver one clear result, there's a lot more freedom in the idea of being mindful, being present, and what you can accomplish as you network in a way that feels more aligned with who you are.
I love that. I love that. David, for those out there who want to get in touch with you, maybe want to work with you, what's the best way to reach out?
So my website is davidpolmer.com. And as guests may recognize, the spelling of my last name is Polmer. And my email, and people can directly email me, is david@davidpolmer.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, David, for all you do to help us be better humans